Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to connect some dots that might not seem connected at first. We're talking about the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, and even what's happening in Silicon Valley. Believe me, they're linked in some really surprising ways.
So let's kick things off with a question, just to get you thinking. What if the front line of a major global conflict wasn't some far-off trench, but something you see every single day? Your local gas station.
All right, first up, we have to talk about what's happening in the Middle East, because we are seeing a massive shift in how that conflict is being fought. It's moving off the traditional battlefield and into a completely new arena, the global energy system.
Yeah, the strategy has totally changed. It used to be all about attacking soldiers, hitting military bases, and the fallout was mostly contained to that region. But now, the new focus is the economic jugular. We're talking refineries, gas fields, vital shipping lanes. The goal isn't just to win a battle anymore, it's to create pain that's felt all over the world.
And you can see the results almost instantly. The markets are in what you could call a state of anticipated panic. Traders are terrified that supply chains could get shut down, so they're jacking up the price of oil, gas, everything. And what does that mean for you? Well, if you're in a place like Spain, it means you're seeing record-high prices at the pump. Suddenly, a conflict thousands of miles away hits very close to home.
So this new form of economic warfare is sending out some serious geopolitical shockwaves, and it's even starting to create some very visible cracks in one of the world's most solid alliances.
Okay, a statement like this, coming from a U.S. president, it's just incredibly rare. For an American leader to publicly scold Israel like this is a huge signal. It tells you that behind the scenes, there is a major disagreement happening about what's an acceptable risk. It's a message to the whole world, really, that even the tightest friendships can start to fray when the stability of the global economy is on the line.
So if you read between the lines, what's really being said here? Well, first, the U.S. is planting its flag, saying, we decide how far this goes, not you. Second, the specific target here, the South Pars gas field, is the largest in the world. It is simply too important to the global supply to become a pawn in a regional conflict. This is basically Washington reminding a close ally that, hey, there are limits. Your freedom to act stops where the risk of a global price shock begins.
And this is where you can really see the two countries' goals splitting apart. For the United States, the #1 priority is keeping the global economy stable, right? Keep those energy prices from exploding. But for Israel, this is an existential fight. They see a direct threat that needs to be neutralized, and they seem willing to accept the global economic fallout to make that happen. Two close allies with two very, very different priorities. Now, this trouble in the Middle East isn't just happening in a bubble. It's creating a really dangerous ripple effect that is directly impacting the war in Ukraine.
It's really a devastating chain reaction. Think about it. The chaos in the Middle East makes energy prices shoot up. And who's one of the world's biggest energy exporters? Russia. All of a sudden, their government coffers are overflowing with cash. And this isn't just abstract economic air. This is hard currency that lets them fund their war machine, build more missiles, and get around sanctions, all while the world's attention is diverted elsewhere. In short, chaos in one part of the world is directly funding an aggressor in another, making the fight for Ukraine that much harder.
But it is important to point out, this isn't a completely one-sided story. Western allies are adapting. For instance, you see Spain recently committing a new €1 billion aid package. It's a clear sign that support for Ukraine is still a top priority, even with all these other crises popping up.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit, but let's stick with this idea of strategic pivots, because a very similar story is playing out, not on a geopolitical battlefield, but in the high-stakes war for tech dominance.
Just look at this number, $80 billion. That is the incredible amount of money that Meta, Facebook's parent company, bet on the metaverse. For years, they told us it was the next big thing, the future of the internet, an $80 billion gamble on a future that, well, it turns out, just wasn't ready to show up.
The crown jewel of this whole vision was supposed to be Horizon Worlds. But here's the problem. People just weren't using it. They'd try it once and then never come back. The experience didn't stick. And in this new economic climate where money isn't cheap anymore, you just can't keep pouring billions into a project that isn't working. So what do? They make a classic strategic pivot. They are basically pulling their resources out of the long-term speculative dream of the metaverse, and they're redeploying them to the immediate all-out war for artificial intelligence. They're retreating from one front to go all in on another that is absolutely critical for their survival right now. But here's the interesting part.
That $80 billion investment wasn't a complete waste. A lot of the really advanced research and development that went into virtual reality, things like spatial computing and how users interact with digital spaces, turns out to be directly useful for their AI division. It was an incredibly expensive lesson, for sure, but a lesson they can still use.
So, let's zoom out. What do we get when we put all these pieces together? A conflict over energy, a fracturing alliance, a tech giant's massive pivot. On the surface, they look like totally unrelated stories, right? But when you see them all together, a bigger picture starts to form.
And here it is, the big takeaway. The foundational systems that we all rely on are being reconfigured in real time, right in front of us. Long-standing geopolitical partnerships are being stressed to their limits. The very flow of energy around the globe has been turned into a weapon, and even the biggest companies are having to scrap their ambitious future plans to deal with the harsh realities of today.
So we've seen just how fragile and interconnected our systems of energy, our alliances, and our technology really are. It all leaves us with one final, pretty important question. Which system is going to be put to the test next?